I had just retired when my daughter-in-law called. "You don't do anything. Watch my kids while I travel." Her tone wasn't a request. It was an order. I just smiled and quietly hung up the phone. She left for her trip, certain I'd stay home and obey. But I had other plans. One she'd never expect. When she returned, what she found left her speechless. My name is Dorothy, and I'm 63 years old. I worked as an elementary school teacher for 41 years. 41 years of lesson plans and parent conferences and helping children learn to read. I loved every single day of it, but when retirement came, I was ready. Ready for morning coffee on the porch. Ready for afternoon walks without watching the clock. Ready to finally tend to my garden the way I'd always dreamed. My son Michael is a good man. He married Jennifer 8 years ago, and they have 2 beautiful children. Emma is 7 and little Thomas just turned 4. I love those grandchildren with my whole heart, but Jennifer and I have never quite understood each other. She works in marketing for a big company downtown. Always busy, always moving, always planning the next thing. I respect that. I truly do. A woman should have her career and her ambitions. But somewhere along the way, she started to see me differently, not as a person with my own life, but as someone just waiting around to be useful to her. It started small. A phone call here, and they're asking if I could pick up the kids from school. Of course I said yes. Then it was watching them for a weekend. Then a week during summer break. I never minded helping. That's what grandmothers do, but after I retired, something changed. The requests became demands. The appreciation disappeared. And that phone call, the one that came 3 days after my retirement party, that was the moment I knew things had gone too far. "You don't do anything. Watch my kids while I travel." Not "Mom, would you be available?" Not "I know you just retired, but could you help me out?" Just an assumption that my time was hers to command. I sat there after hanging up, looking out my kitchen window at the garden I'd been planning for years. The rose bushes I wanted to plant. The little stone path I'd been sketching designs for. The bird feeder I ordered but hadn't put up yet, and I thought about my friend, Catherine. Catherine and I taught together for 23 years. She retired 5 years before me, and I watched what happened. Her daughter did the same thing Jennifer was doing. Took until Catherine didn't recognize her own life anymore. Every day was babysitting. Every plan was canceled for someone else's emergency. Catherine loved those grandchildren, but she lost herself. I didn't want that. Not after 41 years of putting everyone else first in that classroom. Not after finally reaching the time in my life when I could choose my own days. So I made a decision. I called my sister Diane out in Arizona. We'd been talking for years about taking a trip together. She's 2 years older than me and has grandchildren of her own. She understood exactly what I was feeling. "Come out here," she said. "Stay as long as you want." Then I called my friend Robert from church. He's a retired contractor who'd offered to help me with my garden projects. "How about we get started this week?" I asked. I lined up everything. A friend to water my plants. My neighbor's teenage son to mow the lawn. I even arranged for Michael to get the kids from school those 2 weeks. Not Jennifer. Michael, my son, could step up and be a father. Then I packed my bags. I didn't call Jennifer. I didn't explain. I simply left her a note on my kitchen table in case she stopped by, though I knew she wouldn't. The note said, "Gone traveling. Back in 2 weeks. The kids are wonderful, but their parents need to parent them. Enjoy your trip, Dorothy." Arizona was beautiful. Diane and I spent mornings hiking easy trails and afternoons drinking iced tea on her back patio. We talked about our lives, our regrets, our hopes for these next years. We laughed until we cried and cried until we laughed. I felt like myself again. When I got home, Robert came over and we spent 4 days working on the garden. He built the stone path while I planted roses and perennials. We set up the bird feeder. We added a little bench under the maple tree. It was everything. I dreamed of. Jennifer returned from her trip the same day I got back from Arizona. She showed up at my door that evening and her face was something I'll never forget. Shock, anger, and underneath it all, something that looked almost like respect. "You weren't here," she said. "No," I replied. "I was living my life. But the kids have a father. Your husband. My son. He managed just fine." She stood there on my porch struggling for words. I invited her in for coffee. We needed to talk, really talk. Maybe for the first time since she married Michael, we sat at my kitchen table and I spoke gently but firmly. Jennifer, I love Emma and Thomas more than I can say. But I'm not your employee. I'm not your backup plan. I just retired and I have dreams of my own. Things I've waited decades to do. Her eyes filled with tears. I just thought you'd want to help. You're always so good with them. I do want to help. But help is something you ask for and not demand. And it's something given freely and not taken for granted. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, my mother was never around when I was growing up. She was always working. I guess I thought if you weren't busy, you should want to be with your grandchildren all the time. Because that's what I missed. And there it was. The truth underneath everything. We talked for 2 hours that night. About her childhood. About my retirement. About what we both needed. About respect and boundaries and love. Things changed after that. Jennifer started asking instead of demanding. Started saying thank you. Started actually listening when I said I had other plans. And I kept saying yes when I could, because I wanted to. Not because I had to. Michael called me a few weeks later. Mom, he said, I didn't realize how much I'd step back from the kids' daily life. Thank you for making me step up. That meant everything. Now, 6 months later, my garden is thriving. The roses are blooming. Birds gather at the feeder every morning. I have coffee on the porch and take my afternoon walks, and twice a week, Emma and Thomas come over after school. We bake cookies and read stories and work in the garden together. They help me plant seeds and watch for the birds, but those visits are my choice. My joy. Not my obligation. Sometimes in life, you have to stand up for yourself, even with the people you love. Especially with the people you love. Because real love, true love, respects boundaries. It doesn't take advantage of kindness. It doesn't assume and demand. I learned that lesson late, but not too late. My retirement belongs to me now. And I'm finally living the life I worked 41 years to earn. Every morning when I sit on my porch with my coffee, watching the sunrise paint the sky, I think about that phone call. That moment when I chose myself and I smile. Because kindness starts with being kind to yourself. And love, real love, understands that we all deserve to bloom in our own time, in our own garden, under our own sun.